Hello, Milwaukee Bucks fans. Welcome back to Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. I'm your host, Dean Simon. Please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on those post notifications to stay up to date and in the know with all the latest Milwaukee Bucks updates. So, first thing on the docket, we have to talk about Chris Livingston, who was brought back by the Bucks on a one-year, $2.3 million contract. After he was waived by the team just a short while ago, he was able to earn another deal, another year with the Bucks in 2025-26. Again, after dominating the summer league, he was able to secure himself a spot as the Bucks' 15th guy on the roster. And though nothing is completely definitive yet with the roster construction, as we'll get into later, because some more decisions could be made in terms of guys that they may like to keep or waive, and, things could be up in the air moving forward. But anyways, of any player to play at least 4 games in the Summer League this year, Chris Livingston is tied for league lead in scoring with 20.8 points per game. He's tied with the Chicago Bulls' Javon Freeman-Liberty, who they just played the other night. They lost 102-96, I believe, to the Bulls, and Freeman-Liberty, who put up about 23 points. But Chris Livingston had another 20-plus point scoring game. His stats for the season so far: 20.8 points, 5.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 49% shooting from the field, 38% from three-point range. The one thing, though, the one critique that I have of Chris Livingston, even though he's been setting the world on fire, he's just been relentless at both ends with driving towards the basket, and he's just been a great on-ball defender. One critique that I have of Chris Livingston is that he is a little bit turnover prone, or at least he has been in the past 2 or 3 out of the Bucks' 4 Summer League games. In the past 2 games specifically, he's had, I believe, a combined 11 or 12 turnovers, and the 2.3 assist to 2.8 turnover ratio is not a great one. And I know that Summer League ball is a completely different brand of basketball because it's more equated to college basketball, where all these guys are going out there and leaving everything on the line. They're giving it their all. There's just a bunch of fouling and reckless decision making. And going forward with Chris Livingston, he proved, thankfully, in Summer League that he was too good for the Summer League, maybe even too good for the G League, but he still has some things to work on at the next level in terms of on-the-fly decision-making as a ball handler and just playmaking in general as the lead ball handler of a given team. And I think, obviously, these are things that he can improve on. These are things that are teachable, are coachable, and I'm pretty sure that he'll be able to get the gist of playmaking at the next level once he gets a little more reps. He kind of gets used to NBA game speed and just plays in that environment a little more often. So Chris Livingston was able to earn himself another deal after being waived. This has got to feel great for him. And moving forward, I think he's going to be doing some great things for the Bucks in 2025-26, as they're going to be prioritizing depth a little bit more after re-signing a couple of key guys in not just Gary Trent Jr. and Taurean Prince, but also Ryan Rollins. They'll still have Andre Jackson Jr., or will they? That's something we'll be getting into in a second. Anyways, moving forward, Bradley Beal decided to finally agree to a contract buyout with the Phoenix Suns the other day, and he's heading to the Los Angeles Clippers on a 2-year, $11 million deal. And my first thoughts after seeing this was that Bradley Beal is, no matter what you say about his defensive effort, maybe he's not the best defensive player on the court at any given moment, or at least he hasn't been this past season, but Bradley Beal is still an incredibly effective scorer, and he could easily, now for the Clippers, be their first guy, their first scoring option off the bench, kind of like a Jordan Clarkson type role, but way more efficient. I feel like people equated Bradley Beal's on-court production to his yearly salary without even looking at his stats, and you would assume, just because of how badly people talk about him, and that he was surely on the worst contract in the league last year. Now he's not, and now you can kind of just look at him purely as a basketball player and as an offensive player at that. He put up 17 a game last year on about 49, 39, 80 splits, and that's pretty remarkable. And no matter what the sample size of games was, I still believe he played about 53 games. That's a guy that I wouldn't have refused as a good option for the Bucks coming off the bench if he were to be willing to take like a league minimum contract, even though that probably wasn't in play or wasn't the case, because he, after last season, he still knows his worth, even though he was, again, on the worst contract in the league. He knows he's worth more than a league minimum, and I'm sure the Bucks front office knew that too, and they just weren't able to scrounge together the money to offer him the right deal. But Bradley Beal to the Clippers, another Bucks target off the board, and that's one that especially stings with me. It's up there with the Andrew Wiggins one, being him being taken off the board by the Heat in the trade market. I would have loved for Bradley Beal to join the Bucks and affect their offense, like on the reserve unit in any way, and that would have been a nice boost going forward for the Bucks. But as I mentioned before, Andre Jackson Jr., we're going to have to start having some uncomfortable conversations about him. And while I don't believe that, 4 games in the 2025 Summer League defines him as a player, it's just that him restructuring his contract with the Bucks recently to make it that his contract isn't fully guaranteed for this year or just in general until opening night of the 2025-26 season. Instead of, it was supposed to be on July 7th, and now obviously it's July 16th, 17th, and his performances in the Summer League have left a lot to be desired, and he's just not as aggressive as an offensive player as you might like. Only taken about 2-3 shots in a given game, and while maybe he'll hit 2 of his 3 opportunities, you would like to see him assert himself a little bit more, because this is a place in the Summer League where, even though he might not be the greatest offensive player at the NBA level, you would like a guy like him to really be a dominant offensive force against other guys that are competing for a roster spot. If he wants to prove that he could be a mainstay in the Bucks rotation, he should really be going off against other guys in the Summer League that are, fringe NBA guys that are fighting for a spot. And it just feels like there's a lot left to be desired. And on the defensive end, you can kind of nitpick him a little bit again as an on-ball defender. Has looked a step slow. A little, his reaction time is a little bit slow. As a three-point shooter, he really hasn't performed too badly. I think the 3-and-D possibility of him going forward as, again, like I said, a possible mainstay in the Bucks reserve rotation, I don't think it's still out of the question, but his performances in the Summer League and with this contract non-guaranteed until opening night, it could make you think that the Bucks are open to waiving him, because only about $800,000 of his $2.2 or $2.3 million salary for this year is guaranteed. Maybe they look at their options in terms of waiving him and opening up another spot on the roster and getting a little more financial flexibility to maybe bring in one of the veteran free agents that are left. I know that guys like Malcolm Brogdon, like Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, all these guys, they're going to not necessarily demand a league minimum, while they might, a guy like Chris Paul could really be up for anything, as it's going to be his last year in the league. But a guy like Malcolm Brogdon, who's 32 and still could definitely contribute to a championship team, he's going to take more than a league minimum. He's going to ask for the salary around Beal, around $5.5 million. And speaking of Beal, actually, there were reports that both Malcolm Brogdon and Chris Paul, interestingly enough, with Chris Paul interested in a reunion with the Clippers, Malcolm Brogdon is apparently also interested in going to the Clippers following Bradley Beal. So even more potential Bucks targets from 2-3 weeks ago could all just be heading to the Los Angeles Clippers in later dates. So that's something to watch as well. And apparently, as we watch this offseason going forward for the Bucks, if they do open up another roster spot and waive Andre Jackson, or they make some other kind of decision, we could be seeing an unexpected veteran, being added to this roster alongside Giannis, alongside Miles Turner, and all of that will remain to be seen. But, it's still very much possible now, given the non-guarantee of Andre Jackson Jr.'s contract, and that the fact that they could open up another roster spot if he were to be waived, just one more of the 15 left. Early takeaways from the Milwaukee Bucks offseason. Of course, you have to recap the Damian Lillard stretch and waive. And again, talking about Beal, it's funny that joining Lillard in the stretch and waive, I think he's going to be earning about like $17 million a year from the Phoenix Suns over the next 4 or 5 years. It's funny that you never really see stretch and waves in the NBA, or at least I haven't, in terms of seeing star players or former star players get waived and their contract stretched. That's not a thing that you typically see. But with the new tax aprons, with everything, with all these teams trying to get more creative in terms of saving money, I guess you're going to see more things like that. If they decide, if teams decide that a guy isn't worthy of his huge contract, you're going to see a lot more stretch and waves. So you don't really see him year in and year out, but you get two this year with Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal. So Dame is stretched and waived. You're going to be paying him about $22.5 million over the next half decade. So that's just $22.5 million off the cap for the Milwaukee Bucks. And again, in the present moment, with bringing in Miles Turner and getting Damian Lillard off the team when you knew he wasn't going to play all of next year, it all sounds great right now. But by the third year that you're into this deal of giving Damian Lillard $22.5 million to not suit up for your team, it's going to start to feel worse and worse, and you're going to start to see more of the ramifications of the Damian Lillard stretch and wave. But besides that, with still paying him $22.5 million and all that, and bringing in Miles Turner, they were still able to obviously bring back Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince on deals that were pretty awesome. That, again, as I've stated in previous videos, that I thought they were $8 to $10 million annual salary guys that they were able to bring back on 2-year, $7 million, $7.5 million deals. Just incredibly valuable three-point shooters. And Gary Trent Jr. really showed a lot more this year in terms of his on-ball scoring and his ball handling, his ability to step back in the mid-range and hit jumpers on the left elbow. He appears to be a way more versatile scorer than at least I originally thought when he arrived to Milwaukee. Taurean Prince, of course, was one of the league leaders in three-point shooting this past year alongside Gary Trent Jr. Of course, you brought back Bobby Portis. You lose Brook Lopez, but again, you add Miles Turner to make up for that as a pretty great consolation prize. Bring back Ryan Rollins, which I thought was maybe the most underrated move of the Milwaukee Bucks offseason because, again, he's just a guy that is oozing with potential on both ends of the floor, and it would have stung a lot if the Bucks were to have lost him to a prospective team looking for a restricted free agent, a guy that, that could turn into something at both guard positions going forward. And Ryan Rollins, I'm more interested in his defensive promise moving forward and potential, because his athleticism, his instincts, all of that combined, just it makes him an incredible defensive prospect. And then he got more reps as a lead ball handler, a pick and roll ball handler, and was able to be a little bit more experienced in again making those quick decisions like I talked about with Chris Livingston earlier. If Chris Livingston could be involved in the Bucks offense, whether it's in garbage time or in certain spot stretches where he does have those responsibilities, you could see some pretty quick and promising growth from a guy like Chris Livingston, because we saw it from Ryan Rollins. And on top of that, the fact that Chris Livingston has been shooting the three ball pretty consistently this summer league, and Ryan Rollins shot over 40%, a little over 40% from three this past year. I feel like those guys are pretty comparable, and you could see a lot of the same upgrades in skill and IQ as you did with Ryan Rollins and Chris Livingston. So that's going to be something to watch. And we're just going to have to see how the rest of the offseason plays out, because as John Horst said in that interview with The Athletic the other day, that the offseason is far from over, and they're still going to be assessing all of their options and anything that they can do to upgrade their roster going forward until opening day. They said they want to also have a great training camp, a great season leading up to the trade deadline, and a great trade deadline. So everything is going to be on the table. More decisions are going to be made, and we're going to have to see how everything plays out in 2025-26. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. I've been your host, Dean Simon. Make sure to tell me what you think in the comments, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so you don't miss another Milwaukee Bucks episode on Bucks Latest. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Bucks.